Cristopher Sanchez gets the start today for Game 2 of the NLDS as the Phillies have a must-win game against the Mets. We've got starting lineups, we've got pitching matchups, plus we'll get into some of the scores around the league and much more today with our predictions on PHLY Phillies podcast presented by Ace Hardware. You can head on over to Ace Hardware Home Services online at www.acehardwareservices.com to get your project started today. Welcome in, guys, to the show. We've got Tyler Zulli, Jamie Lynch, myself, Renee Washington. I see in the chat we're already talking about the starting lineup, guys. We will get there because it was announced Friday afternoon that Rob Thomson decided and elected to go with Cristopher Sanchez to start today for the Phillies against Luis Severino. But before we even get into pitching matchup, we've had a night to sleep on it, guys. Yesterday stunk. Of course, we talked about it in our post-game show. Shout out to everybody that tuned in live with us post-game to talk through the frustrating Game 1 loss. You have had an opportunity. The Phillies dropped the ball. We've had a chance to sleep on it. It still sucks today. And there's even more numbers and stats that have come out just about how badly it stunk yesterday. But how are you feeling today? A new day, another chance. If the Phillies can walk out of Citizens Bank Park today with a split series going into Citi Field, obviously way better than 0-2 going into Citi Field, but gives you a little bit more optimism? Question mark?
Yeah, absolutely. How I feel is weird.
Okay.
The series is decided today. Like, this is it. This is an elimination game for the Phillies, and I think Rob Thomson making a move to the lineup tells you that they feel the same way. You can't wait another game to change something that needs to be changed. I feel somewhat optimistic today. I say that guarded because, I believe in this team. I believe this team has had amnesia at points this year where they've come out of poor performances and look like a totally different team the next day. But I don't know if we're going to get it. And hearing the guys talk about shadows, you can make it that way you will. We're not using that as an excuse. I do think there's some validity to it. Ruben Amaro on his podcast made a really good point that maybe Kyle Schwarber was the only one that had success. He was the only one wearing sunglasses yesterday. So maybe that's something you look at today. Do guys, think after sleeping on that, like, yeah, maybe some polarized lenses would help me there. I don't know. But I feel okay because if you win this game, you then have Aaron Nola up in New York.
Yeah.
And then you have Zach Wheeler again. So you would need to win 2 games. And, you get Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, and then, whether you go Sanchez, Nola, Suarez,
right,
and just throw it all at the wall in a Game 5, you cross that bridge when you get there. But if you're set up pretty nicely in your next 2 with Nola and then Wheeler. So you got to win today. It's the literal definition of a must-win game.
It is. And honestly, after yesterday, being that you now are going to be on the road for the next 2 games, it is absolutely a must-win game because you also to go down 0-2 and have to win.
72% when a team wins Game 1.
To go down 0-2 and have to win the next 3 games is very, very difficult, especially since 2 of them are on the road. Well, here's some of the numbers. So we know the Phillies have never won a postseason series after dropping Game 1. Lovely. They dropped Game 1 yesterday. But we know at some point all records and streaks and things can be broken. Hopefully this year is the year it is broken. Overall, though, across Major League Baseball, only 3 teams have ever come back to win a best-of-5 series after losing both Games 1 and 2. So we talk about you cannot go down 0-2 today. Obviously, it's extremely difficult. Just 3 teams that have come back to win that best-of-5 series. Of course, it's a small sample size. But in all best-of-5 postseason series, the team that wins Game 1 has gone on to take the series 109 out of 152 times. That is 72%.
So you're
of whoever
me
wins.
there's a chance.
So there's a chance, guys. There is a chance, a very small chance. But
well, we actually had this conversation in our Discord channel this morning on the Phillies channel, and somebody was raising the point that they find that stat to be a little skewed because a lot of the teams that do end up losing game one are just, maybe not the best teams, maybe not of the caliber of the Phillies. He's like, so 28%, but how many of those teams were like the last wild card team?
Exactly.
So he's like, I would up our percentage to like 35 or 40% because of the caliber of this team. It's an interesting way to look at it. I wish I had the confidence that was true. But I'll live with the 28%.
Yeah, and to your point, actually, teams that win game one at home have advanced 73% of the time. So that is typically the higher seed. Obviously, they have the home field advantage for game one. And 73% of the time, the team that wins at home goes on to win the series. And so, yes, that math it is a little bit skewed because that's typically the higher seed. So take that with a grain of salt as you'd like.
Chance still.
And there is a chance, guys. I know we've got lots of folks in the chat, both Phillies and Mets fans in the chat today as we're previewing game two. We do have the pitching lineup. On the Phillies side, it starts off with Cristopher Sanchez, who's going to get the nod today. As we know, Rob Thomson mentioned on Friday afternoon when he announced the information of who was going to start games 2 and games 3. The reasoning behind going with Sanchez for game 2 was his home and away splits have been drastically different. And also knowing that Sanchez only pitched last season, as we remember, in the playoffs. We remember it was the NLCS, and there was game 4 trying to figure out who was going to pitch. Sanchez versus, at the time, it was Taijuan Walker that was in the discussion. And in that game, Cristopher Sanchez only threw 38 pitches over 2 1/3 innings, and that loss to the Diamondbacks. He doesn't have a lot of playoff experience. That is a given. We know that. And Nola does. So he gets to start at Citi Field on Tuesday. But for today, for Cristopher Sanchez, these home numbers are incredible.
Yeah, he was great.
So after having a 7-3 season, going 2-2-1 with a 2.21 ERA across 17 starts, over the past 40 seasons, only 3 Phillies pitchers have posted a 2.21 home ERA like Sanchez did, or better, in a single season with a minimum of 15 starts. And in that group, Cliff Lee did it in 2011.
He was good.
Roy Halladay did it in 2010, and Kurt Schilling did it in 92. So Sanchez's home ERA of a 2.21 in his 17 starts at home puts him in that category with those 3 pitchers. On the road, much different numbers, but we're not on the road today. We're not even going to talk about those. But for Sanchez, it's been an incredible season. He just had a baby. Him and his wife just welcomed in Christopher Jr. I guess it's technically a junior. And, of course, it's been just a phenomenal season for him. The growth that he's had, the development that he's had. I have a lot of faith in Cristopher Sanchez on the mound today to start game 2.
Yeah, they won all 3 games that Sanchez started versus the Mets this year. And then on the inverse of Christopher, and, we've talked about the decision today. I think it's right to throw him at home. The numbers are stark. It's like, what is it, a 5.4 to a 2.2? Did you say something like that?
Yeah,
something
on the road.
In that ballpark,
a 5.02 ERA on the road.
So I think the decision to get him at home is good. I think he seems like a pretty chill guy, like a fun-loving, happy, because we're going to get to Bohm, because I think the body language is the big reason why Bohm was out. So he seems pretty chill. I don't think the moment's going to be too big for him. Mm-hmm. On the other side of that, Severino is a guy that the Phillies have faced, a lot. And Severino had an ERA over 5 on the road. Mm-hmm. So, if this was Sanchez starting game 3 up there, our Mets show counterparts would be going, hey, this Cristopher Sanchez guy stinks on the road this year. His ERA is 5 point whatever. We can say that about Severino. The Mets lost 5 of his last 6 road starts. He's a different pitcher away from home. So now we just got to hope the right decision was made. Mm-hmm. And we're talking post-game about Cristopher Sanchez and Edmundo Sosa being brilliant moves by Rob Thomson. This is kind of Rob Thomson, the discussion about him last night, there was nothing you could say that, in my opinion, that was Rob Thompson's fault. Today, he's got his fingerprint all over this game because of the Sanchez decision and because of the Edmundo Sosa decision. I think they're both the right decisions. Let's hope those two go out there and prove Rob Thomson to be a genius.
Yeah, exactly. And I know in terms of Severino, when you look at his pitching against the Phillies this season, He did face the Phillies in consecutive September games, had a quality start each of them. He allowed 2 home runs his last time pitching in Philly. That was on September 14th. He gave up 3 runs across
Bryce
6
Harper
innings.
took him out yard twice.
That was the game. And then 5 days later up at Citi Field, he allowed 3 runs over 6 innings. So for Severino, as you mentioned, his road splits are not as great. He does have a 3.91 ERA on the season. He has also logged 188 innings this season. So he's also been someone that is one of the more counted on pitchers for the Mets, and someone that, he's said, well, he even said himself, he's probably not any more fatigued than most pitchers performing in the postseason. I mean, at this point, your innings pitched in the regular season don't really matter. But he is someone that has been on the mound for them in some key areas, including those consecutive starts against the Phillies. So it is going to be interesting, because I think ultimately, as much as we can talk about this pitching matchup, we all know the game does not come down. Well, obviously it does technically come down to who's pitching, but it comes also down to whose offense shows up.
This is going to be the offense today. I think there's the most important Philadelphia Philly today is Trey Turner. Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper were 2 of the only bats that showed up yesterday. The 4-hole situation right now is a disaster for the Phillies. With Alec Bohm getting benched, and I know we're about to get into that, Castellanos is not the answer at the 4-hole. JT offensively is kind of a ghost of himself right now. He's the guy I'd probably feel most comfortable putting in the 4-hole. But it's clear. We saw this from the Diamondbacks.
Yeah.
We've seen this from other. Nobody intelligent is going to give Bryce Harper anything to hit. I just tweeted out a stat of his. He's like 4th in Major League Baseball history with a minimum 150 plate appearances in playoff OPS, behind like Babe Ruth. The guy's a playoff monster. I'm not worried about him. I'm not worried about Kyle Schwarber. What ties those 2 together is Trey Turner. I think he's huge today. And then, in the 4-hole, if the Phillies come up short again this year, there is no doubt the direction of the offseason is to get Bryce Harper better protection. Yeah. You don't have good protection for him. There's no reason for the Mets to pitch to him. So that's why, to me, there's no real clear answer for the 4-hole. That's why Trey Turner, to me, is the most important Philly today. He has to see some pitches.
Yeah.
He has to drive the mistakes, and he can't be chasing stuff out of the zone. He just needs to give you good at-bats and put the ball in play. What did the Mets do yesterday? Was it 8 singles?
So, I was going to say, it was
single. You don't have to swing out of your shoes. You don't have to put the ball over the yard. You got to grind out some base hits today.
Yeah.
And that's why I think Turner is imperative to the Phillies' success, because if he gets going, maybe Bryce Harper's at-bats get a little more to hit because you're on edge, because his speed's on the base. He's got to tie. He's got to be the bridge from Schwarber to Harper to overcome kind of your 4-5 hole. So I think he's huge today.
Yeah, and honestly, just real quick, as we are presented by Ace Hardware here on PHLY Phillies podcast, make sure that if you ever need some help and someone to step up in those key moments, whether it's a leaky pipe or a plumbing or air conditioning unit that's gone, or heating issue, whatever is going on in your household, Ace Hardware has all that you need. They've got the expertise with their professionals that have decades of experience. They've got all the tools and equipment that you need. They also will get you a great price and quote to make sure you can find what makes most sense to fix the problems in your home. So visit Ace Hardware Home Services online. Again, that's acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project, or to be able to deal with any sort of issues and repairs you have in your home around plumbing, heating, cooling, electrical, or anything else, because they've got free estimates on equipment installation, and they've got the trained professionals to help get the job done. Hopefully today the Phillies can get the job done. Because yesterday, as you mentioned,
I agree with you,
the Mets had 5 singles. We remember it was single walk, single sac fly, 5 singles in the 8th inning, a walk, 2 sacrifice flies, and that is how they won the game. It wasn't home run or bust.
No.
It wasn't them chasing pitches. It was them just small balling their way into winning this game. And I know they were talking, I was reading and listening to various post-game interviews from the Mets as well, and they were saying, listen, Zach Wheeler was unhittable. And we knew that the moment he left the game after 7 innings, it was this unspoken, all right, it's our time. And they did exactly that.
Yeah.
Jeff Hoffman came right in, and their eyes lit up, and they took advantage of the opportunity. And for the Phillies,
because Hoffman had 2-0-2 counts,
exactly,
and just couldn't get out of it.
And for the Phillies to have had such a great, we talked about the performance of Zach Wheeler, but also even on the other side of it, the shadows and everything else you want to point to as a factor. So did the Mets. Both teams dealt with that. But the difference is they found a way to grind out something. And I know I saw a stat that Todd Zalecki actually just tweeted out prior to the show. The chase rate for the Phillies from August 1st through the end of the regular season, 32.6% was the worst in baseball. Their chase rate last night in game one, 32.6%.
Yeah,
so you
that's
can't
why
have
when we
that.
were saying it felt like game 6 and 7 again.
Yes,
it kind
same
of
exact
felt
issue.
Slightly less worse, but it's not good. Look, I see some people in the chat saying, MBD said Harper should be the leadoff. I've sworn off that conversation, but there's a reason Ohtani does it for the Dodgers. Anyway, you need better protection for Bryce Harper, but there's one other guy. It's your other $300 million man.
Yep.
And, Castellanos is what he is.
Yeah.
You live and die with it. JT, you wish you were getting a little more offensively right now because you need it. Trey Turner has to step the hell up.
Mm-hmm.
They need him. They paid him the big bucks. I saw some people on Twitter, well, why not bench Turner? Why does it have to be Bohm? Well, because paychecks matter, and you're not going to bench a $300 million player. It was already a big balls decision by Rob to sit Bohm. It wasn't going to be Turner. You need Trey Turner to step up today. Alec Bohm, I applaud Rob Thomson for making the decision because that's not an easy one.
No.
I would imagine his poutiness and slamming of helmets is something that he has in him. It's a great competitive fire, but sometimes, Renee, you've been in locker rooms. Sometimes a pouty attitude can infect others. And, if you're struggling and going through it, usually with Bohm, when he's slamming helmets, it means he's kind of deep in the muck of said slump.
Yeah.
Or Rob Thomson knows him well enough to know, it was almost like a mercy benching. Like, he might know Alex so well that he says, oh, boy, that body language, that means he's got no answers right now. He's lost at the plate. He's trying something. So, for those of you out there that say, hey, Rob, last year in the playoffs, you didn't do anything. You didn't change anything up.
That was me. I was one of those people.
Yeah, and there was validity to it. I'm not saying you were wrong. But for those people that have that critique of Rob, well, he addressed it today. He made a pretty big decision. Alec Bohm was a big reason why this team was as successful as they were this year. I mean, this man led, in RBIs for a long stretch. When everybody was hurt, he was there driving doubles. This was not an easy decision. I think it was the right decision. You could say maybe why not Cody Clemens, but I think Edmundo's defense is the answer there. I really hope for Rob Thomson's sake, Edmundo makes him look like a genius today.
I hope so. And I know there's also been a lot of conversation around why not bench Bryson Stott. Here's the lineup for today, though. Officially, the Phillies have Kyle Schwarber still. Yeah, Kyle Schwarber leading things off. Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, Nick Castellanos still sitting in that 4th spot. Bryson Stott actually moved up in the lineup. He's batting 5th. Then you've got JT Realmuto, Brandon Marsh, Edmundo Sosa, of course, slots in place of Alec Bohm, and then Johan Rojas. As we know, Trey Turner and Alec Bohm went 0 for 8 yesterday, so I understand the validity around why not bench Trey Turner.
Validity is a tricky one.
Validity is a tricky one. It's the Diddy. It's the Diddy.
We're not bringing Diddy into the pregame show.
Oh, gosh. Well, Diddy's a Mets fan, so.
Oh, see?
Yeah, so
Good
we can
vibes.
technically bring him into the pregame show.
Yeah.
He's a Mets. We've seen him in Mets gear, I should say. But no, we're not bringing Diddy into this. But validity into this is the fact that between Bryson Stott, Trey Turner, and Alec Bohm, one of those 3 had to sit. And I do understand the questions
There's
around.
only so many moves to make.
But you can't sit. Exactly, you can't sit all 3 of them.
You're not sitting Trey Turner.
They were for Stott to move up. I know has people a little bit concerned, but I think on the flip side, now I have a little bit more faith. I know people are saying the bottom 3. I actually don't mind Sosa slotting in, but I'd rather have him there than Stott. On the other side, you want to hear some not great stats. This is also why Alec Bohm has been benched. Paul Casella actually put these numbers out that Alec Bohm had a 1.036 OPS in April. As you know, Alec Bohm, as you mentioned, the first half of the season, RBI king, top of the league in doubles, RBIs, landed himself in the home run derby because of how well he was showing at the plate. And the only player across the entire league that had a better OPS in the opening month was Mookie Betts. Fantastic start for Alec Bohm. But since then, he's had a .707 OPS, including a 6.12 OPS since the start of August and a 4.63 OPS in 13 games since coming off the IL. The reality is he had an 0-4 game yesterday. He also went 2 for 27 to close out the regular season. Alec Bohm, we felt like something was off with him. We felt like he needed a day off. He went on the IL with the wrist injury.
Well, that could
he
be
came
part
off
of it too.
that, and I wonder, and that's exactly it. I do wonder. Not only has he been struggling and the frustration's been there, but as we know, he came off the IL for that wrist injury pretty late in September, and maybe he's not 100%. So sit him on down. Give Edmundo Sosa the opportunity to start. And I don't mind this change for the Phillies to slot Sosa into that role because Bohm is not the same Bohm that we had the first half of the season.
And Thomson called Sosa like their energy guy.
Yes.
Which is interesting because I would have thought that was more like Cody Clemens. But Edmundo, again, seems like mentally like a fun-loving, not going to get down on himself move. And I think that's I really do think that's why Thomson made the decision ultimately because, like I kind of have more to the people in the chat that are saying this. I have more faith personally in Alec Bohm over Bryson Stott right now. But I think it's that sulkiness. Yeah. Because, look, Citizens Bank Park is, that's 3 games in a row you've lost there. When the other team is able to flip Citizens Bank Park on the Phillies, and I don't mean like booing the Phillies, but when you make that a tight but nervous environment where 45,000 people are just zapped out of the game, I think a sulkiness in the dugout, a slamming of the helmet, like it's the last thing you need. You need to loosen up somehow. I don't know how you do it, but the Mets were able to flip Citizens Bank Park, almost against the Phillies. And I'm not blaming the fans. It's just, it's a nerve-wracking, tight environment. And when it goes quiet and it gets tight like that, I think the whole team, kind of feels it.
Yeah, and honestly, Alec Bohm has started every single playoff game for the Phillies over the last 2 postseasons. He has been a staple of their lineup in the playoffs. Obviously, we know this season as well has been fantastic, but he did bat just .170, a 170 batting average in September. And to your point, the slamming of the helmet and the struggles that we saw in his 0-4, although Trey Turner was very bad yesterday, you do have to wonder if there is more there, either mentally, definitely, or even physically.
If I had to guess, this is probably something they've addressed with Bohm before.
Yes, this is not the first time, I'm sure.
Man, like when you react like that, it's not good for you to get out of it. Like it's trying to help him get out of it. Some players can handle that. Like a Bryce Harper, he slams his helmet. Sure.
You feel okay. Okay, he needed to get that out. But to your point, Rob Thomson's around these guys way more than any of us are, including those of you in the chat. He knows the tendencies of these guys. And when Alec Bohm gets to a helmet slamming point of his slump, that might be the sign for him of, nope, we got to pull him. He has said he is expecting to, and Bohm will be starting game 3. It's not permanent. But for today, game number 2, it is Sosa that gets to start in place of
Edmundo!
Bohm.
Let's go, buddy. Come on, make Rob look like a genius today.
I hope so. And on the other side for the Mets, just to get
I have a decent feeling about Edmundo.
I do too. Here's the Mets lineup for today. They, of course, kick things off with Francisco Lindor, Mark Vientos, Brandon Nimmo.
Vientos is the guy I'm going to hate.
The polar bear. Pete Alonso in the 4th spot. Iglesias, who gave us a nightmare yesterday. Martinez, Starling Marte, Alvarez, Bader, and, of course, pitching is Severino. And so that is the lineup the Mets are rolling out with. I do feel, honestly, like we've said a million times before, it always comes down to the Phillies having to take care of business. You are going up against a Mets team that right now is unfazed. I wrote this down in my notes. Yeah. Mets are unfazed. They have had so much adversity over the last week alone and battled through that. And for the Mets fans that are in the chat, you obviously know because you've witnessed it firsthand. But for this Mets team that have had a 24-35 record on June 2nd. We talked about the swing around the London series. On June 2nd, they were 24-35. They went 65-38 the remainder of the regular season. Yikes. They won 20 of their last 29 games. Yikes. And then, of course, we know the last week, the doubleheader where they squeezed out that crazy up and down a game number 1 of the doubleheader with the 8th inning comeback that honestly was like a first we've never seen in baseball. Then, of course, the Brewers series where it was Pete Alonso that gets that home run. And, of course, then yesterday. So this team over the last week has had so many emotional games, and they walk off the field and they're just like business as usual. The Phillies have to pounce on them. You cannot. This is a scary, dangerous team for the fact that with their backs against the wall, they handle the call. They step right up. They're going to grind out wins. They're sticking together.
Why couldn't
the
Devin
Phillies,
Williams just make this easier? I know it's
correct.
tough
And
game.
the hard part is the Phillies right now are not having that same swag. That's been one of the strengths of the
tight.
Phillies.
They got
is
tight
that
asses.
they are a team that when under pressure, when counted out, they step up the most. It's actually been the Mets that have been doing that this entire season. So I'm okay with try something, figure out what you can get from this starting lineup because you cannot allow the Mets to linger and hang around. You've got to come out early. I want to see like a Cleveland Guardians start to the game where they put 5 runs in the first inning.
Yeah.
I'd love that for the Phillies today.
That's kind of the only way I'll feel like supremely confident coming out of this is if they just punch them right in the nose early and get to Severino and put up 6 or 7 runs. It can be done. It is possible. Jordan Coughlin just made a comment. I thought the same thing last night. I set up the fire pit and the big projection screen last night, and I was like, oh, I wonder how all the teams that had buys this week did.
Everybody did well.
And everybody else won. Is that not the most Philly thing ever? But we're not using that as an excuse because we're not the Braves. We're not a bunch of losers.
Well, the reality is everybody else did win that had a buy the first game.
Yeah, they did.
and
they
it's
got
not
timely
over.
hits, and it was really kind of cool.
It's not
Good
over yet, but let's take a look at some of those other scores because it is important right now to keep an eye on what's going on around the rest of the league. We talked about the Cleveland Guardians put up 5 runs in the first inning and then went on to win 7-0.
Like?
I know. Can we have some of that today? Can we get some of that same? Please send that our way because a nice 7-0 win sounds fantastic. And then also we saw for the other side, for the AL, the Yankees did get a solid win, and we talked about it when we were previewing all the division series matchups.
That
for the Yankees,
Aaron Judge.
correct. I was going to say for the Yankees, it was can they get other guys to step up? Well, in their 6-5 win over the Royals yesterday, it was Alex Verdugo, who didn't even know if he was going to be on the playoff roster at one point. That started and also was pinnacle in their win. Verdugo, it was Jazz Chisholm Jr. It was the other guys that stepped up. Verdugo actually got a hit off of
at second on that one they reviewed.
Verdugo actually got a hit off of our former Philly, Michael Lorenzen.
Yeah,
that was big, but it was for that game, it was the most ever changes in lead changes in a game, according to Elias Sports Bureau in like postseason history. So it was a really exciting back and forth game. And then another one, looking at the NLDS, the Dodgers, Padres.
Shohei Ohtani's good at baseball.
You had one job. But yeah, Shohei Ohtani, of course, not only do they win that game, but they also get the moment of Shohei Ohtani throwing his bat that's gone viral and everyone's retweeting it because that was a huge home run for him. The Padres, we talked about their rotation being a difference maker to give them the upper hand. They lost Joe Musgrove to a UCL injury. They've got Yu Darvish, who's making a start today because, of course, the ALDS games are not today. The
AL's
NLDS,
off today. They
are off today. They play tomorrow. But the NLDS is today. So after the Phillies game, Padres, Dodgers,
I'm glad
with
for Philly's
Darvish on the
sake,
start.
it's just like right back to
I'm
it.
so glad.
If there was a day off, oh God, it would be torture. So I'm glad they're just getting back into it today in an hour and 7 minutes from now.
I know. Well, the Dodgers probably could have used a day off. They used 5 of their bullpen arms in a bullpen that's already depleted. But for the Phillies' sake, fortunately, they do get to turn right back around and play today. So it is Yu Darvish and Jack Flaherty later for the Dodgers Padres. But for today, Cristopher Sanchez and Luis Severino as we are done looking around the league because hopefully we even have to worry about what's going on in the NLDS. Hopefully the Phillies go out, win today, and then set themselves up so that we can actually focus on Game 3 with a little bit more optimism. Prediction time, though, guys.
Adam B in the chat says Ohtani's the best player that's ever lived. I was literally explaining. It was funny because he came up in front of my wife, and I was like, yeah, and just wait until next year when he's a Cy Young candidate on top of it all. And she was
Crazy.
I saw her brain break, and it was like, wait, what? And I was like, yeah. He's just not pitching this year because of surgery, but he's a Cy Young candidate when he pitches. So the Dodgers, if injuries don't derail him, we are watching the greatest baseball player to ever walk Earth.
And he's literally putting the team on his back. This is how you step up in big moments.
So if you're a true baseball nerd, just enjoy it.
Yeah, Shohei Ohtani, his first ever postseason experience. He starts things off with Game 1 as such an exciting game. Obviously, the Dodgers had heard prior to the game Clayton Kershaw's out for the postseason. He won't be back after he's dealing with bone spurs in his big toe. So he's out for the season. And you have this is what game changing big-time players do. Exactly what Shohei Ohtani did last night for the Dodgers. We have talked about their pitching staff, and they're going to need offense to show up to make it a high-scoring game. Phillies have the same thing, except you have a pitching staff. You have Zach Wheeler that went out yesterday. And then those 111 pitches, as we already talked about, the 30 swings and misses, that's the most in a postseason game by any pitcher since 2019. We literally saw one of the best postseason pitching performances by Zach Wheeler last night, and you did not support him. So if the Dodgers can do it without a pitching staff, with having all the injuries to their pitchers, the Phillies should be able to do it with their pitching staff healthy and available.
All right.
So let's get into...
I'm gonna say that the Phillies win today. They get it done.
Okay.
I'm gonna stick with my score from yesterday. Actually, no, I'm gonna slightly tweak it. I'm gonna go 6-3 Phillies win.
Ooh. Well,
Nick
guys,
Castellanos is due for a hit. He's like 0 for his last 26 in the playoffs. Like, please, God, stop. Somebody. Just the simple numbers here. Somebody has to be due. Trey Turner, please, man. Go out there and earn your paychecks. The offense has to go. I can't. And we're doing a watch along. So if anybody wants to see us suffer and get tortured during a playoff baseball game, check back to the channel. Please. I am not going to be well mentally if the first 6 innings are the same thing again, Renee. If I see guys diving at pitches out of the zone, I might just leave you and Tyler for the post-game show by yourselves. I might just get up and drive home and right into the river.
Oh, no. Okay, well, as we are here on our PHLY Phillies pregame show presented by Miller Lite and Ace Hardware, make sure you guys drop in the chat your predictions, whether you're a Mets fan or a Phillies fan. Let us know your predictions, as this show is brought to you by Miller Lite. Miller Lite keeps it simple. They've got the I can't speak today, words. Undebatable quality, great taste, only 96 calories per can, a light beer that tastes like beer. You can get it delivered right to your door, or of course you can go and buy it at a store, anywhere that sells beer. You see that rhyming there? Head on over to MillerLite.com/PHLY Phillies.
I'll be drinking.
We will have some Miller Lights ourselves for this game, because this is a scary game number 2. Let us know your score predictions in the chat. As Jamie, you've got 6-3 Phillies.
Yeah, I'm going to go with 6-3.
That you're saying it with your chest. Yeah. You feel optimistic about that?
I think Trey Turner's going to give a good at-bat.
Okay.
And maybe the greatest showman will put on a show here.
Ooh. Tyler, I almost called you Trey. Tyler,
Hi.
who do you have?
I'm taking the Mets in this one. I think Severino's pitched really well down the stretch. I just don't feel good about this Phillies offense currently. I think Sanchez is going to pitch well today. I do. I feel decently confident in him. I know we've talked about it. Like, I would have probably thrown Nola in this game, but they've made the decision to go to Sanchez. I think he pitches well. I think this is a low-scoring game for a majority of the game. Luis Severino's been really, really good his first time through the lineup. He starts to get hit around a little bit the second time through. His numbers in the first inning are sensational. He has a sub-1 ERA through the first inning. It's 3.5 in the second. He's only given up 20 runs in the first 2 innings. He starts to give up a little bit in the second time through, like 3rd, 4th, 5th innings is where he kind of has the propensity to get beat a little bit, but 38 strikeouts and 31 first innings pitched in the regular season. I don't feel particularly good about the Phillies coming out and jumping on Severino in this one. And I think the longer that this thing goes into a low-scoring game, you'll just kind of see more of a trajectory of what you saw yesterday.
Oh, if they go into the 6th or 7th, Tyler, and it's low-scoring and no hits and all that, they're done.
I'm going to take the Mets in this one. I think the Mets win this one and jump up 2-0.
I hated your prediction. I think it's awful.
That's fair. That's fair.
Don't you do it too?
No. Okay, wait. Tyler, you're really stuck on Aaron Nola starting game 3 versus game 2. That really is not sitting well with you, I feel like.
No, it's not. I mean, again, this is where I would have come back to if they win game 1, Sanchez is no doubt starting game 2 because of the home road splits. I feel like you probably need somebody who has had some postseason experience. And then on top of that, I did just say, I think Sanchez is going to pitch. He's going to pitch well.
Yeah.
I do. I just fear that if this is another one of those low-scoring games, you start the doubt creeps in a little bit, and the chase rate goes up as it has. Would you say 32-point-something% yesterday?
Yeah.
For a guy who's got a decent sweeper, he's going to challenge you with fastballs.
Yeah.
You know, fastball sinker overlay is pretty high for Luis Severino. He's going to challenge you in and out of the zone. It's on you to adjust. I don't feel good about today's game. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I have been adamantly saying I am perfectly fine with Sanchez today on the mound because I don't think it's going to come down to him. The pitching, I think it's going to come down to whether or not the offense shows up.
Yeah,
I do feel like, to your point, and I've said this on the post-game show, I've said this on every show for the most part, I do trust in a game 3, regardless of what happens today, win or lose, game 3 is going to be obviously very crucial. And I'd rather have Aaron Nola on the mound at Citi Field. He has pitched very well at Citi Field. So that being said, though, I know in the chat, KT said, get Tyler a Mets jersey.
God, no, please
That's a
don't.
Mets fan saying that. Also, I see some predictions in the chat.
Lawrence
Unconscious
4-2.
Zone. Unconscious Zone has Mets 8-7 in 10.
Oh, God.
Oh, you've got extra innings for us. Oh my goodness. We have a watch along and a post game show. So if this goes to extra innings, we're doomed. Lawrence is, as you're saying Phillies 4-2. Bailey Andrews is saying 5-2 Mets. I thought Bailey was a Phillies fan too.
He is, but he's a hater of this
Oh
offense.
no. Greg is saying 7-4 Phils. And then there's some other chatter in there just about the game. K-Red is saying, your head is saying 5-4 Mets, but your heart says 5-4 Phillies. So there's a lot of close scores. I am gonna go Phillies do win this one. It's hard for me to I don't know. I'm with K-Red actually, because my head is saying, with all the things that we heard, even yesterday, I didn't like that Nick Castellanos and Trey Turner even mentioned the shadows. I know they cleaned it up of like the politically correct jargon. Both teams are dealing with the shadows. The game starts 4:08 yet again.
Well, yeah, but in fairness, the
And
Mets didn't hit
They didn't.
S word.
They didn't.
So
But I don't want to hear about the shadows.
I know. Well, here's the thing: if the Phillies won the game and go, hey, those shadows were pretty bad. You go, all right. When you say it, when you lose,
Right.
it sounds terrible.
I don't want to hear about the
But
shadows.
I do think there's a validity to it. We're not using it
Absolutely.
as an excuse. But the Mets were shut down during the shadows too, and both teams' bats came alive when the shadows left. I would take Ruben Amaro's advice and hey, Bryce, Trey, Nick, JT, you want to throw on some shades the first couple innings? These polarized lenses can do wonders. Maybe you
Throw on
take
some
batting
shady
practice
rays.
with them. I know it's not what they're used to,
Mhm.
but this is it, Renee. This is the season. So if Kevin Long and Rob Thomson think sunglasses could help today, maybe give it a whirl. It worked for Kyle Schwarber yesterday.
It did, and both teams are going to deal with shadows. It's a 4:08 start, so you're having the same exact shadows again today. It's another beautiful sunny day out. The shadows
Ooh, a
will be
super
there, and they did have a chance to practice at 4:08 on Friday. Obviously, you don't play at this time typically during the season. So listen, the shadows will be there. I do think it's going to be another low scoring. It's going to be a low scoring game. Technically, yesterday wasn't too low scoring. I like all these thoughts of walk-offs and down to the wire. If the Phillies win today, they're going to have to grind out. I'm going to say like a 3-2 Phillies win. I'm hoping that I hope it's a lot more one-sided in favor of the
I'd love
Phillies.
to see him just punched right in the nose.
I would too. I think a great response after yesterday's awful 6-2 loss is to come out and put up 4 or 5 runs in the first inning. Again, embrace your inner Cleveland Guardians and put up a lot of runs early. MBDBDBF's coming in with a super chat. We appreciate the super chat. And you got some thumbs up on that also. Saying, Benedict Zuli, hope you enjoy your 30 pieces of silver. Benedict Zuli in the house. That gave K-Red an LOL. And then also, I know Yuki Matsui is saying Rat City is going to win 3-1 with 3 solo home runs. Oh my gosh. And Mr. Medical Benefits is saying 3-2 Phil's walk-off. So we're kind of similar with that 3-2 prediction. Lots of scores in there. I do see, of course, all the Mets fans saying it's over. This is it. Mets are going to win. Ego. Elmi.
This is a series. This is
Apologetics is saying Mets win 7-4.
Like if they win today, I think there's a really good chance they win the series. If they lose today, I think they're getting swept.
I'm so nervous, guys. I'm so nervous. This is it.
That's why I'm going to go have a Miller Lite. It's the
Yeah.
original light beer since 1975, Renee. And to this day, it's still the best one, and it helps calm my nerves. So I'm going to go grab one of those.
All right. It's time, guys. We have a watch along. So you guys, whether you're a Mets fan or a Phillies fan, can join us live starting at the beginning of the game because we're going to go take a break, get some food, get some Miller Lights, get ourselves set up in our other setup that we're going to have for the watch along.
Come on, Trey.
You guys can join us live the entire game for the watch along and hang with us. And then we will have a post-game show, hopefully a victory, a Phillies victory post-game show that we have. Last prediction, though, Jamie, comes from your very own, your little one.
Yeah, my 5-year-old Skylar, who's a huge Phillies fan. Something was off yesterday. Addie, my wife, asked her in the morning right away, like, Skylar, how the Phillies going to do? And she looked at his deadpan and was like, they're losing today. And we were like, oh, that was weird. And then when the game started, she, for like the first time all season, had like no interest in watching them.
She knew.
She checked out with Paige, and they were playing in the other room. And I told her about the Schwarber, and she wasn't really as excited as she normally was. It was very odd. And then today we said, all right, Skylar, how we feeling about game 2? She said they win this, and they're going to win the series.
Out
So
of the mouth of babes.
I hope Skylar is, one of those future orbs that can see clearly what's happening.
Kids have a really good, sixth sense about things.
So let's hope Skylar's right. Skylar, if you're watching out there, we're pulling for you. You got a lot of people in your corner. Let's go.
The 5-year-old herself has spoken. The Phillies are going to win today, and they're going to win this series. So that will do it for us here on PHLY Phillies podcast, presented by Miller Lights and Ace Hardware for our pregame show. Thanks so much for everybody that tuned in. Hit that thumbs up button on the way out. We will be live for our watch along coming up in less than 45 minutes about, give or take, and then our post-game show where you guys can hang with us some more. All right, so for Tyler, Jamie, myself, Renee, and our expert, Skylar the 5-year-old, with her prediction, let's go Phillies! See you guys very soon.
We all silly like the mayor.